Rangers aren't supposed to talk about this, Cuck. Rangers aren't supposed to talk about this. When the call isn't on any map. And the voice already knows your name. This is one of those emergencies. We're trained not to panic. We're trained to follow procedure.
But some calls don't want help.
They want a response.
And once they get it, they don't forget.
I'm recording this because I was told not to. That's usually how these things begin. Not with an emergency. Not with panic. But with a rule that suddenly feels optional. There are things Rangers are trained for. Medical calls. Weather evacuations. Search and rescue. Those have forms. Those have language. And then there are things we're trained to recognize without naming. This is one of those. The night I learned the word, I was alone at the station. Night shift. Late season. No scheduled visitors. No other warnings. The kind of night that looks empty on paper. I shut off the overhead lights like I always did. Left only the desk lamp on. Low. Yellow. Too weak to reach the corners. The radio sat beside my elbow. Breathing. That soft tissue stopped noticing after a while. I'd already done the first patrol. Slow loop. Main gate locked. Secondary gate locked. Trailhead empty. Visitor log untouched since the afternoon. I wrote each line carefully. Even though nothing had changed. Especially because nothing had changed. Rangers learn early that silence is not the absence of information. Silence is a condition. At 10:17 p.m., the radio clicked. Not static. Not a call. Just a click. Like someone had pressed the button and changed their mind. I didn't reach for it. I looked at the clock instead. Watched the second hand move. 1, 2, 3. Nothing followed. I told myself it was interference. Old wiring. Temperature drop. I told myself that because it was easier than sitting with the alternative. Then dispatch came through. Not rushed. Not loud. They asked if I was alone. That question wasn't standard. I answered anyway. Yes. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Like it had traveled too far before coming back. Dispatch didn't respond immediately. There was a pause. Not dead air. Breathing. Controlled. Like someone counting quietly. Then they said the word. A word I had only heard once before. During training. Late. After the official briefing. No definition. No explanation. Just the instruction to remember it. The word doesn't describe what's happening. It describes how we behave next. It means the situation doesn't fit any category we're allowed to write down. It means we stop asking questions that might give something a shape. It means we follow instructions exactly. Because improvisation creates patterns. I acknowledged. Didn't ask what had been reported. Didn't ask who made the call. Those questions come later. If they come at all. Before I stepped outside, I waited. That wasn't protocol. But something about the air felt unfinished. I turned my head slightly. Listened. The forest should have been loud. Wind in the branches. Insects. Distant movement. Instead, it felt padded. Muted. Like sound had been wrapped in cloth. The radio hiss seemed louder now. Closer. As if it had shifted toward me. I stood there longer than necessary. Hand on the door. Not opening it. Because opening it felt like an acknowledgement. That's when I understood why the word exists. Some emergencies aren't dangerous because of what they do. They're dangerous because of what they invite you to notice. And once you notice, you don't get to unnotice it. I opened the door anyway. Cold air pressed in. Sharp. Metallic. The station behind me felt too quiet. Like it was listening. I closed the door carefully. Didn't let it latch too loudly. Out here, even small sounds feel like statements. I stood on the steps for a moment. Let my eyes adjust. Let the dark settle into something readable. Nothing moved. Nothing reacted. That was worse than if something had. The radio on my shoulder shifted slightly. Just from my breathing. I told myself to remember the routine. Remember the rules. Remember the word. Because once it's spoken, the night changes. And it doesn't change back. I didn't rush. That was the first decision. Not because I was calm, but because rushing out here feels loud. I walked to the truck instead of jogging. Let gravel crunch under my boots. Each step sounded sharper than it should have. Like the ground was too empty to absorb it. I unlocked the door. Paused. Listened again. Still nothing. No wind through the trees. No distant insects. Just space. I started the engine. Kept the headlights low. Didn't turn on the light bar. Didn't announce departure over the radio. Some nights, you don't want witnesses. The service road stretched ahead of me. Pale. Unmarked. I knew every bend by memory. Every dip. Every place where the trees leaned in closer. I drove slower than protocol. 5 miles under the limit. Maybe more. Time felt thick. Like it was resisting being used. The radio stayed quiet. That bothered me. Normally dispatch checks in. Asks for location. Asks for status. Silence means they're listening instead. I passed the first mile marker. Checked the mirror. Nothing behind me. No headlights. No dust. I passed the second marker. Checked again. Still nothing. The forest felt unchanged. Too unchanged. No movement in the canopy. No reaction to the engine noise. As if sound was stopping right at the tree line. At the first bend, I slowed to a crawl. This is where the maintenance sign usually leans. Faded orange. Bent post. I always notice it. Because it looks temporary. Like it's been forgotten. The sign wasn't there. Not knocked down. Not broken. Gone. No post. No splinters. Just bare ground. Clean. That's when I stopped the truck. Left the engine running. Didn't turn it off yet. Stepping out felt premature. Like ending a sentence too early. I sat there. Hands on the wheel. Listening to the idle. Counted the rotations. 1, 2, 3. Nothing changed. I opened the door. Cold air slid in. Sharp. Metallic. It smelled like pine and something else. Something dry. My boots hit the dirt. Soft. Too soft. I looked down. My footprints pressed in clearly. Only mine. No others. No animal tracks. No tire marks. But the ground felt compressed. Like something heavy had stood there for a long time. Not pacing. Not walking. Standing. Waiting. I keyed the radio. Asked for a location check. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Dispatch responded immediately. Too quickly. Confirmed my position. Told me to continue. Same calm tone. Same measured pace. I asked if there'd been another transmission. A pause. Not long. But deliberate. Then no. But I heard something underneath the word. A faint distortion. Like they were holding the receiver slightly away from their mouth. I didn't press further. Remembered the word. Remembered what it means to stop shaping things. I got back in the truck. Closed the door carefully. Drove on. The trees felt closer now. Not leaning. Just present. Distance felt reduced. As if the road had shortened itself while I wasn't looking. At the clearing, I cut the engine. Silence fell hard. No fade. No echo. Just absence. The kind that presses inward. I stayed seated. Didn't open the door. Didn't reach for the radio. Waiting isn't passive. It's a decision. I counted again. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The forest didn't respond. No sound. No movement. Just attention. And that's when I realized something was wrong with the road itself. It didn't feel like a place you passed through anymore. It felt like a place that had been prepared. Like it had been empty on purpose. The radio came on by itself. No warning tone. No static lead-in. Just sound. And then my name. Quiet. Careful. Spoken the way you say someone's name when you don't want them to turn around too fast. I didn't move. Not at first. My hand stayed on the steering wheel. The engine was off. The truck was dead quiet. The voice came from the radio clipped to my shoulder. Not the dashboard unit. The personal one. The one with the shorter range. That mattered. I stared straight ahead. At the darkness beyond the windshield. At nothing. Because looking down at the radio felt like agreeing it was there. The voice said my name again. Same tone. Same spacing. No emotion. Not scared. Not urgent. That was wrong. Calls in trouble always carry pressure. This didn't. This sounded practiced. Like it had learned how to say it. I counted in my head. 1, 2, 3. I didn't respond. Protocol was clear on that part. When the word is being used, you don't answer unfamiliar transmissions. Especially not ones that already know who you are. The radio volume increased. On its own. I hadn't touched it. The voice didn't get louder. It got closer. That's the only way I can describe it. Not louder. Closer. Like distance didn't apply the way it should. The voice asked for help. Not begged. Not shouted. Asked. Calmly. As if it expected an answer eventually. That implication sat heavy in my chest. Asking means patience. Asking means it can wait. I eased my foot back. Slow. Quiet. The gravel didn't crunch. That surprised me. My movement didn't seem to register outside the truck. The forest stayed completely still. No startled birds. No shifting branches. Nothing reacting. It felt like the sound was being absorbed before it could leave. The radio hiss underneath the voice was wrong. Too clean. Too steady. Real radios flutter. They breathe. This one felt controlled. I keyed the microphone just enough to open the channel. Didn't speak. Just let dispatch hear what I was hearing. The voice continued. Used my name again. Same cadence. Same pause between syllables. Like it was reading from memory. Dispatch didn't answer right away. Then, very softly, the word came through again. Shorter. Flatter. Final. That was all I needed. That was permission to disengage. To stop observing. To leave. I opened the truck door. The sound should have been loud. It wasn't. The hinge didn't creak. The latch didn't click. Everything felt muffled. I stepped out. Kept my eyes forward. Didn't turn toward the trees. Didn't look for the source. The voice followed me. Not moving through space. Just continuing. As if my position didn't matter. As if the sound was anchored to me instead. I reached the back of the truck. The voice stopped. Instantly. No fade. No closing word. Just gone. That was worse than if it had continued. I froze. Listened. The forest didn't change. The silence felt heavier now. Pressurized. I turned my head slightly. Checked the tree line with my peripheral vision. That's when I saw the tower. It hadn't been there before. I'm sure of that. Same clearing. Same angle. But now it stood just beyond the trees. Perfectly straight. Dark. Outlined against the sky. No red light. No maintenance beacon. No shadow movement. It looked finished. Complete. Like it had always belonged there. I didn't approach. Didn't photograph it. Didn't radio it in. Some things don't want documentation. They want acknowledgement. I got back into the truck. Hands shaking now. Couldn't stop it. Dispatch told me to return to base. No lights. No siren. No deviation. As I drove away, I checked the rearview mirror. The tower remained visible longer than it should have. Longer than distance allows. Then, all at once, it wasn't there. Not fading. Not obscured. Just absent. The radio stayed silent the rest of the drive. But the silence felt occupied. Like something had already heard enough. The report was finished before sunrise. Typed. Filed. Sealed. The incident was categorized as an equipment irregularity. Radio interference. No follow-up required. That's how it was written. That's how it stays written. I went home after shift change. Didn't sleep. Lay on the bed with the curtains open. Listened to the house settle. Every small sound felt like it was checking in. The next night, I returned to duty. Same station. Same desk. Same radio. It hissed the same way it always had. Like nothing had happened. That's another thing they don't tell you. When something like this occurs, the world doesn't change afterward. Only you do. Weeks later, I asked a senior ranger about the word. Not over the radio. Not on paper. In person. We were restocking supplies. Neutral place. He didn't ask why I wanted to know. That alone told me enough. He said the word wasn't invented. It was inherited. Passed down from the earliest rangers. Back when boundaries weren't clear and maps were guesses. He said the word isn't about what shows up. It's about what listens. Because some things in the park don't need bodies. They don't need faces. They don't even need to move. They just need patterns. Routine. Familiar voices. He told me the word is used when something starts repeating us. When it stops reacting and starts anticipating. That tower I saw? It exists. Officially. On maps. In maintenance logs. Unofficially, no one is ever assigned to it. No one signs in. No one answers if it calls. Sometimes hikers report voices on the wind. Sometimes campers hear their names whispered after midnight. Sometimes rangers pick up breathing on channels that aren't active. We don't correct them. We don't confirm. We log weather. We log trail conditions. We log gates locked and unlocked. We log nothing unusual. because unusual invites attention. And attention is what it wants. If you ever hear a ranger stop speaking mid-sentence, if dispatch changes tone without explanation, if a transmission ends without resolution, understand this. Some emergencies don't want rescue. They want response. They want to know if the pattern still works. And once it learns your voice, it doesn't forget it. That's why the word still exists. Not to name the threat, but to stop us from becoming part of it. For more stories rangers aren't supposed to tell, subscribe to Park Ranger Confidential.